You think you're protecting yourself. You think shutting down means you're strong. But what if I told you the very thing that you learned to do to survive is now keeping you from ever feeling truly alive? Most people don't realize this, but emotional shutdown is not a personality trait. It's not who you are. It's more like a strategy. It's one you learned probably when you were young, one that once used to help you. But now it's more like a prison that you can't get out of. And the longer you live there, the more your life starts to feel like it's happening to someone else. Like you don't cry when terrible things happen, or you don't get excited when something goes right. You stay flat. You stay distant. Sometimes you even smile, but it's fake. It's like the face you're supposed to make when other people are happy. And you know it. Deep inside, there's this pressure cooker of feelings you haven't touched in years. You just couldn't go there. And now even good things feel exhausting. Even love feels like just too much, too unbearable. And you didn't do this to yourself. You learned it. So here are 5 shocking reasons that you shut down emotionally. And I'm willing to bet no one ever told you the truth about any of them. All right. Reason number 1. You learned that emotions are dangerous. If your earliest experiences of emotion involve punishment or, chaos or fear, your nervous system took note and it said, this is not safe. Turn it off. And it started building a wall, just brick by brick by brick to keep the feelings out. Now, maybe when you were sad, you got mocked. Maybe when you were excited, someone told you to calm down. Maybe when you were scared, they called you dramatic, or worse, they just ignored you completely. So now every time an emotion rises in you, your body doesn't just feel the feeling. It goes into an alarm state. Like, we got to control this. You can't think your way out of this. You can't positive affirmation your way out of this. This is biology. Your body remembers what happened, even if you don't in your mind. And now it's acting like emotions always have to be controlled. And that's the part that people miss. Emotional shutdown isn't apathy. It's not strength. It's not maturity. It's fear. It's just fear. It's a nervous system doing its job to protect you from what it perceives as dangerous. And when your body feels threatened by love or joy or grief, it's not going to ask your permission. It's going to shut you down fast. So what does this look like? It's the person who checks out halfway through an argument. They're really into it, and then all of a sudden they're not talking anymore. They're not looking at you. It's the person who can't cry at a funeral. It's the person who feels numb after they get good news. They just look like a deer in the headlights. It's not because they don't care. It's because their nervous system is saying, just shut it down. That was a strong feeling. Shut it down. And sometimes this gets so deep that even thinking about feeling becomes scary. You avoid movies that stir emotion. You cringe when somebody gets too vulnerable. You just want to back away from them. You even avoid your own thoughts because feeling anything means opening up the floodgates. And you've spent your whole life trying to stay regulated, keep those emotions in the train tracks here, keep the gates closed. But I told you there's 5 reasons. That's one. There's 5 reasons you may have shut down. Here's the second one. You were trained to disconnect from yourself. Okay? Emotional shutdown doesn't just happen around other people. Sometimes it's just how we relate to ourselves. And if you grew up with chronic invalidation, where your thoughts and feelings were dismissed or ignored or ridiculed, you eventually learn to stop trusting your own experience. You stop asking yourself, how do I feel right now? What does my gut tell me? You stop noticing when you're tired or angry or overwhelmed. And instead, you just live by performance, by pleasing, by doing the appropriate thing at the appropriate time because it's what's expected. And your inner world starts to shrivel. It just, And the only thing left is like this mask that you've been wearing for everybody else. And this is how emotional shutdown can become self-erasure. You can't remember who you are anymore. You've become what the situation needs you to be. You feel responsible for keeping other people comfortable. And there's no space left for your own emotional reality, right? Here's the shocking part. Sometimes this shutdown shows up as productivity. It can be perfectionism as being, I'm the strong one. I'm always the one to call in a crisis. You don't cry, you don't complain. When something's going wrong, you're always the first one to step in and go, get back everybody, I'll deal with it. And everyone thinks, wow, they're amazing. But underneath it, you haven't felt like yourself for a long time. So I'm all for people who are good at heroic action. Somebody has to do it. But ask yourself, have you felt like yourself in years? Do you feel like you're actually living smack dab in your life? Do you know where you're going? You might not even know who yourself is at this point, because if you've been disconnected from your inner life for long enough, even joy feels foreign. It's just, it's another performance. Resting feels odd and wrong. And when somebody expresses love towards you, it feels fake. And if you try to feel stuff again on purpose, like if you start letting emotions rise, you'll hit this wall of guilt and confusion. And you'll hear that old voice say, this is just a bunch of woo-woo stuff. And I'm just being dramatic and self-indulgent and, very Gen Z or something. I'm making it up. But you're not. You're waking up. You're waking up. So reason number 3, you were punished for having needs. And yeah, I was. If you've ever felt ashamed for being hungry or tired or lonely or needing help or feeling afraid or for just wanting anything, you may have been trained to see your basic human needs as flaws. Now, some families are very chaotic, right? Mine was. Some are neglectful. Mine was. And some are just cold. Cold wasn't really the word for it. Inconsistent. If you need too much, you're going to be perceived as a burden in these families. And if you ask for love, you'll be disappointed. If you speak up, you're going to be punished. So you learn to cope the only way you can, which is to stop needing anything. Do you ever get emotional flashbacks? Like this old feeling comes back and, you don't know why, but you just, nothing feels right. That's what my mind often thinks in an emotional flashback. I don't need you. I don't need anybody. And that's a lot how I cope sometimes with a strong feeling of oh God, I'm going to get abandoned. It's I don't care. I don't need you. That is so much a trauma voice talking, but it's a total shutdown of the true emotions going on. It doesn't feel I'm going to shut those down. It just short circuits the nervous system, stops delivering the feeling after a while. It's just doing what's needed, right? So you stop needing, you stop asking, you stop expecting care from anyone, and you grow up believing that independence is the highest virtue. I'm a strong and independent woman. Never cry, never reach out. You pride yourself on handling everything alone. It makes you angry when people suggest that you need help. I've been that person. Inside, though, you're starving. And the moment someone does offer to meet your needs, to love you or to comfort you, it's very uncomfortable. It feels almost like they're yucky, like they're not attractive or something. You shut down. You say, I'm fine. Even when you're dying inside, it doesn't seem possible that anyone else could possibly know what to do or would be safe to confide in. Because that old alarm system is going off, If you need people, you're going to be helpless and in pain. You have to figure this out by yourself. And this creates a double bind, right? On one hand, you crave connection, but on the other, you don't trust it. So you keep people at arm's length, even the ones you love, and you convince yourself, I'm better off alone, actually. But what you're really doing is protecting a younger version of yourself who had no one. So until you see this clearly, you'll keep repeating the pattern, right? It's not just seeing it clearly, but then starting to release the thoughts and feelings that are triggered when you come out of your comfort zone in terms of, opening up, being emotional, having needs in front of people. So if you're still in the place where you can't do that, you're going to keep pushing away the very thing that you long for. And that's a very sad thing. You deserve to have love and support. But if you're pushing it away, you're going to be telling yourself, I just don't like being emotional. And, when really you're just trying to survive. You're just being a human in a human body. That's what emotions are. It's a consequence of being a human in a body. So the reason number 4 is you associate emotions with helplessness. And there's something no one talks about when it comes to trauma. The deep feeling of helplessness that it creates. Because, other people, they go, oh, I went to therapy and it was so helpful and I figured myself out. Well, when I went to therapy, my trauma was so great. It didn't do that for me. I did not figure myself out. I kind of broke down. Nobody knew what to do with me. I thought I was like broken and unfixable. I did find a way to heal at last, but it was like quite different from anything I'd done before. That's the daily practice that I teach. So I'm always mentioning that, in videos. I just want to tell you that if you're watching videos, somebody said that to me today in the comments. They're like, I've watched all your videos and I don't feel better. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm just talking about ideas. If you really want to do the work, there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do that my way if you like. The links are down below in the description. And I would just recommend you start, with like the free course, the daily practice. Just try the techniques of naming and releasing. And this is a very specific technique. I hate to even describe it because when people just like take a little sentence version of it and they don't do it correctly, it can make you feel worse. It's written there. It's a very specific technique for getting free from just the incredible burden of fearful and resentful thoughts and feelings that are jamming up your mind and your heart right now. Just, can't think straight, can't feel straight. And there's so much going on in there that it's like, I don't know, it's like a clogged garbage disposal. Nothing's getting through. So what do you do when you have a clogged garbage disposal? You take a wooden spoon and you stir those things around. That's the daily practice. Then you run the water and goes, and it's going again. I love metaphors. Forgive me. Hey, I've got a quick invite for you. I made a free daily practice course that shows you 2 simple techniques to calm the storm when you're triggered inside. It's short, it's powerful, and it helps you feel clearer, more focused, and more at ease, fast. Click the second link in the description section below, or use the QR code right there, and you can start your course right away. Something that people just don't talk about so much is the feeling of helplessness. And part of it is real and part of it is learned. And so a lot of our healing is going to depend on taking the action that we can take, like the little aspect of us that's not helpless, that can do something. You take that step onto that next step up, and then from there, you can see yet another step, and that's how healing happens. You don't have to know the whole journey. You don't have to be all done and fine and okay to begin. A lot of people say that, I would like to try your daily practice, but I'm too dysregulated today. I'm like, that's what it's for. It's for every day, especially when you're dysregulated. All right. If you grew up in a household where your feelings had no power, where nothing changed, no matter how much you cried or begged or acted out, maybe you internalized a dangerous belief that emotions don't matter. This is how learned helplessness starts. You feel something, but so what? It doesn't make a difference. Nobody cares. So you stop reacting you stop expecting change. You stop considering a strong emotional sense of this doesn't feel right. You don't do anything about it. You just go numb and you march right into trouble. So at first this looks like maturity, maybe to you or to me, when we're in that state, I don't get all bent out of shape by my feelings. It looks like maturity, because you don't throw tantrums like some people do. You don't do road rage. You just silently seethe. You don't break down. But it's like seething, or it's like resignation. It's collapse. You've given up your emotions as tools for action. We talk a lot here about how oversized emotions, emotional dysregulation, can do a lot of damage, and dysregulated emotions are normal for people who are traumatized. They can do a lot of damage to your relationships and your work and your good standing in the community. So we learn to regulate our emotions while we work out what we're really feeling, and you can do that too. But on the other hand, there's this extreme where we just give up on them. And we don't recognize that emotions are a blessing. They're meant to be there. They're there, like anger, it's there to go, hey, an injustice has been done against me. You're putting me in danger. You're not honoring me. That's a correct impression. It's that when we dwell on it, when it gets too big, when we're hitting or we can't stop thinking about it, that's when it's got the better of us. So when we're emotionally exhausted from these reactions to things, we can just sort of go numb and it all becomes noise. It's background static. So as an adult, this shows up as disengagement. When life gets hard, you shut down. When relationships get complicated, you check out. You may call it staying calm or reasonable, but what's really happening is that the old message is resurfacing, in your mind. Why bother? It's not going to help. And shutting down in this manner can lead to depression. It can make you very isolated. It can leave you with a life that feels flat and meaningless. And even when everything looks fine on the outside, you might go to therapy, you might do the work, you even understand the trauma, but if that core belief hasn't changed, you're still going to pull away every time life asks you to show up for real, with an open heart. You're still going to go numb and distance yourself. And that's how you lose out on a meaningful life. You still disconnect when people are right in front of you, needing that connection with you, because somewhere deep inside you still believe emotions make you weak. But they don't. They make you human. All right, reason number 5. You mistake numbness for safety. And this one is the most painful because it works. Numbness does keep you safe, at least for a while. And when you're numb, you don't feel the heartbreak. You don't feel the fear. You don't feel the grief that you've carried, for decades, for your whole life. But you also don't feel the beauty and the connection and the poignancy of people and the joy at just being here now. And after enough time, you'll start to confuse this numbness with peace. And, you can recognize this confusion in other people, where they're just like, well, at least I don't have a lot of drama. As a dramatic person, I don't respect that at all, right? So you build a whole identity around, being low maintenance, drama-free, or I'm not emotional. But what you've really built is a wall, and you're just stuck inside it. It's very hard to love and be loved with somebody who's, behind a wall. So you've stopped getting hurt, yes, but you've also stopped being reached. You're unshakable, but you're also unreachable. And maybe no one knows. Maybe you function just fine. Maybe they think of you as, old, reliable. You're successful. You're admired. You've got things under control. But late at night or in your quiet moments, you feel it. You feel that hollow space where your life is supposed to be. That emptiness where your feelings were supposed to live, where love was supposed to, kind of hum along in your life and, guide you towards goodness. And part of you wonders, God, is this all there is? Is this it? No, it's not. What you're feeling isn't peace, it's the absence of connection. What you're calling fine is actually just survival mode, like a possum stretched out on the highway, going on for years. So waking up from this, it's hard. All of a sudden, woo, feelings, right? When you wake up. Because the first thing you feel when you start to come back to life is pain. And then grief, the sadness comes. And it's like old sadness. It's not, you don't even know what it's about anymore. You're just crying. And then the loneliness. The loneliness, I think, is the most pervasive and common. But just like, I see other people connecting, they're experiencing loving relationships. I don't even know where to start on this. So that's the ache. That's the ache of all that has been buried. But that's not a sign that you're broken. That's a sign that you're actually healing, that you're sensitive to this, that you recognize, oh, pain, I missed out on something. I want it. You're thawing. That's your feeling coming back. Have you ever done that where your hands get so cold it hurts, and it just hurts when you start putting water on them or get them rubbed? It's like so painful. So you don't need to force it. You don't need to fix it all today, but you do need to stop pretending that numbness is some kind of goal. It's not. It's the symptom. Sometimes it's dissociation. Sometimes it's just like the brain is like switching off to a mode. Like dissociation can be like when you have a huge argument and you're yelling, you're threatening the end of the relationship, you pack your suitcase, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, you feel nothing. It's a flat affect. That's a really normal like sine wave of dysregulation. Nothing. And it's weird. It feels like when I'm in that state, and thankfully it happens less and less, but it's kind of like the feeling after a rainstorm, kind of like fresh and charged with possibility. But it's in that state that I can do the most harm to relationships, more even than like when I was like over the top, like angry, yelling. It's that nothing thing where I just think, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. And if you say that to someone who loves you, it's devastating to them. It does terrible damage. And in that moment, it seems true. But when you begin to thaw, you begin to realize, oh, what have I done? Oh, I want to come back. So sometimes there's a way back. we thaw, and we begin to learn not to go to that place anybody. We learn to begin regulating our emotions so that we can afford to begin feeling them, so that the thing we're afraid of is no longer greater than we are in our capacity to be ourselves and alive. Real safety isn't about shutting down. It's about building the capacity to stay open, even when it's hard. And that's something that you can learn. You don't have to stay numb, forever. You don't have to live behind a wall, and you don't have to keep performing, normal person behavior when inside, you feel nothing. There's a way out of this, and it starts with noticing and with just being with the truth of how you feel. You can even tell the truth. I don't know. I don't feel anything right now. I'm not sure what's happening. Hey, it's me, and real fast, if you're watching my videos and wondering if maybe past trauma is having an effect on your life today, I want to share with you a list of signs that what you're struggling with now might be connected with neglect or abuse in your childhood. It's good to know this because it can help you know that what's hard for you right now is normal and that healing is possible. You can download my Signs of Childhood PTSD quiz by clicking the top link in the description section below or using that QR code right there. With telling the truth, with learning to regulate your emotions instead of erasing them or denying them, with building relationships that feel safe enough, to kind of stay in your body, don't dissociate, stay in the moment, stay present without shutting down, without flying up out into this space land. You're not broken. You're not cold. You're not defective. You're someone who had trauma and adapted brilliantly, powerfully, effectively. You made it. You are intact. Here you are in the future that you didn't know if you'd ever have. But the emergency is over now, and it's time to come home. You tell people too much about yourself too soon, like their mom just died, and instead of giving them some empathy, you tell a long story about what happened when your mom died. But it's a telltale sign that listening empathically was not something done enough for you.